The parable this week is the wedding feast. But before we get to that, I kind of want to take a moment to sort of set the scene for you. So Jesus has been invited to the house of a Pharisee. And while he is there, we are told in the Bible that he is being watched carefully. And so that means that the Pharisees and the lawmakers there are just judging every single thing he says and does. And he sees a man who needs to be healed. And this man, Jesus goes ahead and helps him out. But before he does that, he actually looks to the lawmakers and the Pharisees and says, is it lawful to heal a man on the Sabbath? And they don't say anything. And so he heals him, sends him on his way. And then afterward, Jesus turns back to the Pharisees and the lawmakers and he says, if you had a son or an ox who fell into a well on the Sabbath, would you not pull them out of the well? Again, they have no answer because they know that they would be convicting themselves if they agree with him. And so what's happening is Jesus is watching them while they are watching him. And something he has noticed is that they have been competing during this dinner for this seat. There's a seat of honor at this house it's where the most important person in attendance would sit. And he has watched them compete over this seat. And so Jesus then begins to tell a parable, and he does something kind of different than he's done in other parables. He doesn't use characters. Instead, he sort of takes the listener and draws them into the story. He really makes a hypothetical situation and says, if you were invited to a wedding feast and you walked into this wedding feast and went and sat in the place of most importance, how embarrassing and shameful would it be when the host comes by and says, there is someone of greater importance here. Please move yourself down to a lower seat. And how embarrassed would you be in front of everyone having to do that? And Jesus says, instead, walk in and sit in the lowest seat. That way, when the host comes and sees you and says, friend, why are you sitting here? And he goes and moves you to the most important seat, into that honored spot, you will be exalted in front of all of your friends. And so Jesus is really pointing at our own pride and our own need for humility. And so in Luke chapter 14:11, where he tells this parable, in verse 11, he says, whoever, so that's everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted.